Hey everybody, welcome back to Foreign Post. I'm Steve Susans. Blockchain technology is something that seems to be very prevalent in business and industry right now. And for a lot of people, blockchain means Bitcoin. But in a lot of ways, blockchain is very different from the currency. It is a ledger system that helps business and industry trade ideas, keep records, transfer materials between one another, and you see it in everything from agriculture to groceries and even retail outlets. But what about blockchain and development? Well, actually, there's a lot of different ways that blockchain is being used, and we recently sat down with John Burg, a senior development advisor and blockchain expert, and we talked about some of those developments around the world and how they're helping, and in some ways, really can't be used, but you'll see from our conversation. So, John, thanks for being on the program. We had talked back in Kabul when you and I were working there at the embassy about blockchain, but it was something that was a little different because I think most people associate blockchain with Bitcoin or with the currency thing, but there's so many other applications that can be used. Can you kind of walk us through some of that?
Sure. So the underlying software protocol that is blockchain that enables cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin is a ledger of sorts that's highly secure, and as a result, it can be used for a lot of different things. And just since the last time you and I had a robust conversation about this in 2017, 2 years later, a tremendous amount has happened, and it is being piloted for a wide variety of different things from refugees to supply chains and everything in between.
You know, that's exactly right. The more I was looking into it before our conversation, that it was agriculture seems to be one that seems to be leaping off the charts with this. There's a group in Australia that's doing one for livestock. There's several groups that are doing it here in the States. Even Walmart has started associating that. It was right after the romaine lettuce thing, because now using blockchain, you can actually track it within a matter of seconds of where that romaine lettuce came. But from a development standpoint, this is even much larger than most people realize, because I mean, even the refugees that are in Jordan are the groups are using blockchain in some capacity. Am I right?
Yeah, and that's a really good use case example of what the potential could hold. So, in the case of the World Food Program, they have this Building Blocks project that is piloting blockchain as a way for Syrian refugees in Jordan to buy their own groceries, for example. They will have a digital wallet where credits are stored that is all in the blockchain, but that is also biometrically enabled. So they'll go to the grocery store, and to check out, they'll put their face up to an iris scanner, and that the cost of those groceries is automatically deducted from their digital wallet that the World Food Program replenishes. So that is one particular example. They are still piloting this. It's still in the early stages, but the international development sphere is a particularly interesting field of potential use cases because it is where real life gets most complicated, much more so even than supply chain management with Walmart, because as this huge client, they are able to tell their suppliers and vendors, this is what you're going to do if you want to continue doing business with us. But yeah, international development is far more complicated.
Because when you think of a blockchain, you've got links or units that are on these things. And when we talk about the refugees there in Jordan, the Syrian group that's there, and we're talking, I mean, hundreds of thousands, of people that are there. Each of those links comes back to like the World Food Program or the implementers on the ground, and so it's actually a whole chain of groups that get them there. But it's not just the money, right? It's not like the credits. It's also identification stuff as well.
Right, and so there is something called self-sovereign identification where an individual human being would be their own chain, and anytime you're adding information or data about that person, that self-sovereign ID, you're adding another link of data. So in the case of the Syrian refugees in Jordan going through the World Food Program pilot, That is still got a lot of potential that has yet to be tested, but going back to your description of how there is a lot of people who could be covered by this technology, they're getting medical treatments, they're undergoing health care, they're getting educational credentials, all of these things that can become stored on their self-sovereign blockchain, and as additional information that's stored securely that they might be able to use in the future, because as it is, refugees a lot of times are just carrying printed documents in a clear plastic sleeve around wherever they happen to be.
Yeah, and that's tough, and that's the way it's been. But now, I mean, especially the way it's driving to, that would just save so much, especially for the EU and some of the groups that are actually taking them in. Greece is particularly overwhelmed right now with the amount, not just refugees, but with the migrants that are crossing the sea and so forth. But it just seems like it's limitless. It just seems like there's so much you could do from contracting down to supply management, down to logistics, wireless communication. So much of the things that contractors are using out in the field, or even NGOs are using out in the field now, using this kind of technology could really kind of open up whole new ways of doing business.
You're right, it could. The technology is still very young. There's still a lot of piloting being done. There are not yet a lot of data being supplied to back up some of the evidence being claimed, but that has a bit more to do with the fact that this is a technology being offered by for-profit companies that engage in non-disclosure agreements with their governmental or non-governmental nonprofit clients. That notwithstanding, there's a tremendous amount of potential. We still don't have publicly available a lot of the performance data about how well this is going or how much benefit it is adding over less expensive, more mature technology. But to go back to your refugee example, this sort of technology does have the huge potential to be a system of systems. So taking the refugee case, you have a lot of different NGOs, you have a lot of different governmental organizations, multilateral organizations that all have different systems. And there are cases where these systems can talk to each other, but by and large, it is definitely not a unified field of refugee data. And so this is the kind of technology that could conceivably be a back end in order to help manage that data. Say, for example, just yesterday, JP Morgan came out with their announcement that they have now adopted something I think called JPM coin. I could be wrong on the name of that, but essentially they're using blockchain. They've launched their own blockchain. It's not a cryptocurrency, it's not strictly a data ledger, but it is a system of settlements to help manage their back end on banking transactions. So if you can imagine the analog to that in terms of managing refugee data, there's huge potential there, definitely.
Wow, it's amazing to me. But you're right, there are limitations. I mean, capacity in some of the developing countries that could actually, pull this off, because you've got to have all of that information technology that comes with it. And then there's political consequences. There's, other things where that not all refugees are the same. I mean, we had talked about the Rohingya situation where millions are now in Bangladesh. This sort of system might not be working there. Am I right?
Yeah, completely. And so there are a lot of blockchain zealots. And so maybe a year and a half ago or so, there was started to be this bubbling up, hey, the Rohingya, they're sort of worse off among refugees. Why don't we use this emerging technology to help them? And people who do work with them and who do understand the sort of political risk that they are subject to said, that is a terrible idea. As secure as the technology is, this data is just about their identities and potential political persecution and actual violence. It's just too risky at this point in time. And I think that's a fair point. So you're right, it's not a one-size-fits-all by any stretch.
It does seem, in that particular case, it does seem fraught with peril. And Lord knows that, I mean, they've gone through so much anyway, and the whole idea of going back to that would just be awful. But watching this and being a part of it, I'm really interested in where this goes. And I think this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. What I'd like to do is bring it back. Maybe we could have some examples of where this goes and where it's working, and then just kind of talk about the future there too. It really intrigues me that a lot of these private companies are being so, close hold, but it's technology, and I understand that, especially from a private standpoint, that you don't want to give away your card. You don't want, because now it's emerging so much, and there's even schools like MIT offering classes. My brother took a class with MIT, and now he's looking to get into the industry. So, but as development grows and as this kind of work starts emerging, I think you and I could have further conversations, I think, and where it's going, and especially by the end of the year.
Yeah, MIT does a great job, and I'm glad you mentioned them. They do a great job of tracking what's going on in this emerging field and the emergent industry very well. And I follow what they share publicly, and it changes from week to week. So I'd be happy to come back and share what
Well, send us some links to that. We'll put it on the site on foreignpost.com and share whatever information that you can give us. We'll put it on the site and have others come on, and then we'll talk maybe in a month or so and see where we are in the industry. So, thanks again for being on the program.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Steve.
For more information on blockchains and blockchain in development, check out foreignpost.com. We've got links and we've got stories that will keep you up to speed on the technology and where it's working. And for other information on international development and humanitarian assistance, check out foreignpost.com every day. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. This has been a presentation of Foreign Post Media Incorporated in cooperation with Co-Create Studios, Arlington, Virginia. For more information on Co-Create Studios, please visit their website at cocreatestudios.com. The Foreign Post podcast is sponsored by PowerBase Associates. For all of your research, public affairs, and communication needs, visit powerbaseassociates.com for more information.